Hey everybody, I'm Ben,
And I'm Rachel.
and this is In the Boat with Ben TV, episode 5.
Five.
Today we wanted to talk about getting your family out of survival mode. And before we get into the how, we wanted to talk about what survival mode is. So, what does survival mode look like to you?
I think it's when I have almost zero patience for anything that goes on. I feel like today I might have been a little bit in survival mode. So
Yeah.
when the kid so when the kids are whining and screaming and that kind of thing, it's very hard for me to be empathic and to sort through those things with them rather than say, no whining, no screaming, please go away.
And she didn't say it that nice either. I'm just kidding. When I think about survival mode, I also think about the feeling of drowning beneath all of the responsibilities of running the house and
Mm-hmm.
how that plays into how well you can focus in your work and all of those kind of things. And so, survival mode is definitely not a place where we want to be as a family. We've come to understand that the answer to that for us is establishing and practicing family values. So, family values are core values that we decide on as a family we want to live out no matter what. And as we live those values out, it helps us shift our mindset away from feeling like we're just surviving and helps us to feel like we're actually thriving as a family, like there's life and vitality.
Before we settled on some family values, we had just had our twins, number 4 and 5 for us, and life was just insanely crazy. And there were 2 infants to feed all the time. There were 2 infants who weren't sleeping well, and there were 3 other boys who were 2, 3, and almost 5. And so we fell into this place where we were really just existing as parents. We weren't parenting intentionally. We were just trying to survive, basically. It was definitely a survival season for us. And for a while, I had been hearing about family values, and I wanted to sit down and brainstorm some of them. But by the time we got to the end of our days, we were just so exhausted. It took us probably a year to settle on our family values after multiple conversations, and just feeling like we could not survive any longer without having some kind of framework in place for our family.
So, the catalyst for us to actually sit down and come up with our family values came in the form of a family retreat. And we were able to get out of our normal environment, out of our normal routine, and just relax a little bit. And while we were there, we actually heard again about the importance of family values. And it was like we were being beaten over the head with this message. And so finally decided it's time. It's time for us to go ahead and sit down. So on the 3 hour drive back, we actually discussed and talked about what our family values would be.
And we asked ourselves some questions, and one of them was, what kind of legacy do we want to leave to our children? And another one was, when we think of our children grown, who do we want them to be?
And those questions are focused on our children, but they're also such personal things too, because our children kind of go into the world as pieces of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so the values that we establish as parents, the values that we teach, create a framework for our children to fill in their own values and to live intentionally from their own values when they become adults. And so it's really important as a parent to use values as a way of teaching what it looks like to live from your values intentionally.
And one of the things values did for us was it provides that framework so that when we're asked to do certain things or when an opportunity comes in our plate to our plate, we're able to say yes or no based on what it might do to that framework.
I want to talk about the practical approach to actually determining what your family values are and how you can put those into practice in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming, but helps you to get your family to shift your family out of that survival mode and actually feel like you're thriving. So the first thing you need to do is to write down what you consider your family values. And these can be things that are important to you, evidenced by things that you're already doing. It can be things that you want to do as a family that maybe you're not currently doing. All of that is fair game. On our drive back from the family retreat, it was about a 3 hour drive, and we came up with a pretty long list of what we considered values for our families. And from there,
We only have one family.
did I say families plural? I mean, we have so many kids, it feels like we have
It's
multiple
like
families.
two families. Yeah, it's true.
Our family. Then we took our long list and we categorized each of the values into main categories, and we came up with 13. Now, we wanted to take these month by month, and so we decided to double up on one of the months so that we would have 12 months worth of values that we could explore as a family.
So then, once we had all of our family values in place, we brainstormed again some practices that might help us teach our children about those values. Because some of our values encompass things like forgiveness and love, and those can be really abstract concepts for children. And so we chose between 5 and 7 practices that would help us teach our kids about things like gratitude and giving and love and forgiveness. During those months, we practiced those things regularly. So for November, our value was we are gracious, merciful, and compassionate. Because November is a month in America where we celebrate Thanksgiving, and we wanted to teach our children about gratitude. And so, one of the practices that we did is we had an old dying magnolia tree out in our front yard, and we snapped a branch off of that and brought it in and put it in a little terracotta pot, put some rocks around it, and we made it our Thanksgiving tree, is what we called it. And every day after dinner, we cut out these little sheets of paper, just little tiny slips of paper that look like leaves, and we would just write what we were thankful for and used clothespins to put it on that tree. And so this dying branch became this living tree that was filled with our own leaves of gratitude, which was just a really cool visual experience for us.
So, as a final note, if this is something that you're going to try to do with your family, I encourage you not to go overboard with it. We chose about 5 to 7 practices, and honestly, that was a little bit much for us.
Yeah, some of them we didn't even get to.
Yeah, so think about what your family can handle, and also have some grace for yourself if you try it and it's not working out so well. That's okay. The point of this is to get you to focus and be thinking about your values on a regular basis. And so, again, just to recap, choose some values. And if you can come up with at least 12 main categories, that's a great place to start, because then you can focus on one per month, and you can do that on an annual basis.
And you just get better and better at it because it's practice.
That's right. And then for each month's focus, come up with an appropriate number of practices that you can do to express those values and work on those with your family. Shifting your focus away from the feeling of drowning and the everyday frustration of life, and focusing on your values is a great way to get your family out of survival mode and to start to feel like you're thriving as a family. Some days you will still feel like you're just in survival mode. That's just life, and that's okay. There's not a point where you arrive and suddenly your family is living out your values and it's perfect. It really is not about the destination, but it's about the journey. It's about the things that you learn about your family, and the ways that you grow together as you explore these things. And on those days when it's hard, you can find encouragement in the fact that you are intentionally living out your family values. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want more content like this, you can go to intheboatwithben.com. We've got a podcast there, a weekly podcast where we talk about these topics and we go into a little bit more depth. If you want to watch more videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's the button. No, it's over there. No, You're not pointing in the right direction. Stop. You're just being silly now. This is something that you can do depending on the age of your child. When they get to be about 4 or 5 years old and they start to express the characteristics of their personality type, it's really difficult to tell earlier on. But if you have children that are in that age range or older, this is a really useful way to understand a little bit more about how they operate so that you can communicate better with them.